Before we begin today's episode, a brief content warning. One of the episodes we'll be looking at today is the Season 5 episode Emily, which contains the death of a child as a major plot point. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And as opposed to last week, we're bereft of news again.
Yeah, I don't really have any gossip at the moment.
It's gone quiet again. Well, hopefully something will show up soon.
There's no new gossip about that new novel either. I guess we're still miles away from it actually being released, but I'll let you know as soon as I see it up for pre-order, just so everyone can go and kind of secure themselves a copy.
Yeah, that ought to be interesting. But yeah, otherwise I think we're going to have to go and talk about Emily.
Yeah.
I can feel the excitement pouring off of you here.
So this is the continuation of last week's episode, which was Christmas Carol.
Yes. So Emily, directed by Kim Manners, written by Vince Gilligan, Frank Spotnitz, and John Shaban, and first broadcast on the 14th of December 1997. No change between the guest cast between before and now, or at least no one of significance. There are a few new people in there, but Wikipedia doesn't consider them important enough.
Fair enough. Do you have a synopsis for this episode?
I do. In a strange dream-like sequence, Scully walks through the desert and picks up a gold cross necklace from the sand. Mulder arrives at San Diego County Children's Center, where Scully introduces him to Emily. Mulder tells Scully that Emily's surrogate mother is named Anna Fugazi, but the Fugazi is slang for fake, and there are no true records of how Emily came into the world. Mulder is interviewed by a judge regarding Scully adopting Emily. Mulder explains that Emily was conceived from Scully's ova, which were taken from her during her abduction. The judge is skeptical. Later, Scully and Mulder find that Emily has a fever and they discover a green cyst on the back of her neck. In hospital, a nurse pierces the cyst with a needle and green liquid oozes from the wound. The nurse collapses from exposure to the liquid, but Emily appears unaffected. Mulder believes that Emily has the same body chemistry that they have seen before with alien-human hybrids. At Transgen Pharmaceuticals, Mulder tries to get Dr. Calderon, Emily's doctor, to grant access to Emily's medical records. Calderon refuses. Mulder beats him up and threatens him with a gun. Calderon hurriedly leaves the building and Mulder follows. Scully, meanwhile, has imaging tests conducted on Emily. Calderon goes to a large house to see the two dark-suited men from the previous episode, one of whom kills him by stabbing him in the back of the neck with an alien stiletto. Calderon's wound bleeds the same green liquid. Both men then morph into Calderon lookalikes, and Mulder follows one of them as he leaves the house. The results of Emily's image testing show her to be suffering from a rapidly growing neoplastic mass in her central nervous system. The second Calderon injects more Emily with an unknown dark green substance, and then escapes by changing its appearance again. Scully believes that Calderon is continuing the treatments that Emily was receiving, and that the Sims were murdered because they were trying to stop him. Mulder returns to the large house, and discovers it is in fact a nursing home. There he stumbles across a woman named Anna Fugazi, an innocent elderly lady. The hospital doctor tells that Emily is getting worse. A woman from the adoption agency wants to stop Scully from making any decisions for Emily. Mulder, meanwhile, connects the names of the women in the nursing home to recent births and finds that Dr. Calderon was treating them all. Emily reacts badly to being placed in a hyperbaric chamber. At the nursing home, Mulder then finds records with Scully's name on them, along with a live fetus in a refrigerated chamber. Detective Kresge finds Mulder shortly afterwards, and one of the Calderon copies enters. Mulder and Kresge confront Calderon, who attacks Kresge. Despite Mulder's warning, Kresge shoots Calderon, whose wounds cause him to spew green blood which incapacitates Kresge. Mulder quickly flees the building to avoid being infected. Calderon then morphs into Kresge, deceives Mulder, and escapes. Mulder returns to the hospital where Emily has gone into a coma. Some days later, Emily has passed away. Scully and Mulder are at the funeral chapel, and Mulder tells her that Kresge is recovering and all evidence of the nursing home and Prangun is gone. Also in attendance are Scully's family, including her new nephew, Matthew, born of Tara and Bill. The only evidence they have left is Emily's body, but when Scully opens the coffin, she discovers sandbags along with Scully's crucifix necklace, which she had previously given to Emily.
Thank you. I realised from listening to your synopsis just how convoluted this episode is.
It just doesn't make any sense. Well, I don't know. No. It makes sense. But it's when you put up against Christmas Carol, which was a nice kind of a ghost story set at Christmas, And now we're just bringing, like, the worst parts of the conspiracy into it.
Yeah, I will note again that this two-parter is my first experience of the conspiracy when I started watching as a teen, and I was lost by the end of this.
What introduction.
It was not what I was expecting, let us say.
No. One thing I do find interesting about it as a conspiracy episode is that we know from last time, Christmas Carol was not conceived as a conspiracy episode at all.
No, it was supposed to be a kind of reimagining of the Christmas Carol.
Hence the name. So, what's interesting is we know also that the filming of the film had finished at this point.
Yes.
And the logical extrapolation from that is that this thread of the conspiracy, because we do have a few threads in here, but anything that touches on Dwayne Barry all the way out to Memento Mori probably won't have any bearing on the film, given this wasn't meant to go into the series at this point. This was a rewritten episode.
I'm gonna continue on the theory of this shouldn't go at this point. In the last week's episode, I commented on a mistake on the autopsy report, whereby they got the death date as kind of sometime in August or something like that. This week, the MRI scan report for Emily, halfway through the episode, had an October date on it. So on that basis, I've got to assume that this two-parter was never envisioned to be a Christmas episode.
Yeah, it could be.
So my theory is that these ideas were originally envisioned to fall maybe much later in this season, and they've been kind of dragged forward. It just seems funny that one wrong date could have been a goof, but multiple ones in a row kind of infers that somebody thought this episode took place at another point.
It's true, but then again, they got the set dressing right, so I'm really mystified as to how they managed to do this. This episode isn't as clear with the whole Mulder doesn't believe in aliens. It's actually less clear-cut than I thought it was. Because I seem to remember him sort of coming right out and saying, I don't believe in aliens anymore. And it does actually put these episodes into a very weird flux, given as soon as you introduce the green blood, it's like, I don't really care what Kitsunegari said back in Gethsemane. It's a genetic quirk. That's really weird. Because we've got that one real-life case of that guy who spewed toxic gases.
Our kind of Critchko argument here is that this is some kind of genetic anomaly.
Yeah.
It's not alien.
Yeah. But then we also get to see shapeshifting, which again, Eddie Van Blunt throws some wrenches into that whole thing, but Eddie Van Blunt didn't have green toxic blood as well. These are the shapeshifters. We've seen them since Colony.
And this is the same kind of green blood because the two people exposed over the episode we treat in the same way as when Mulder was kind of afflicted by it. And as far as we know, by the end of the episode, they don't die.
Yeah, and I think Mulder even name checks Scully's treatment of him in Endgame, because he sort of says to keep him cold or whatever it was.
For both Kripsky and for the nurse that's afflicted earlier on as well.
So Mulder's mindset is actually really hard to pin down at this point, because I thought we were on the no aliens bend. He's not actually that extreme, because as you pointed out, the nature of Scully's abduction has always been very woolly on exactly who did it. I mean, it comes down... Mulder's very heavily come down on humans, and we know those Japanese scientists we don't talk about anymore were definitely people who did stuff to Scully at that point as well.
At the same time, though, the continuity of this series is kind of constantly at flux. I mean, I noticed that even in this episode, Mulder mentions to Scully, that time you were taken and were missing for 4 weeks. She was gone for 3 months.
Yeah.
So we can't seem to get a handle down on what's happened, when's happened, and how long for.
Yeah, and I need to stop saying it, but I keep coming back to, what was this show's Bible like? Did you actually keep this thing up to date at all? Because this keeps happening.
Mm.
And it shouldn't be. I mean, it's one of these things that when you look at any long-running TV series, this kind of inconsistencies always crop up. But when you've got something which is like this conspiracy that the X-Files has, you'd think they'd be paying much more closer attention to how it worked and fit into everything else.
Especially as they keep referring back to it.
Yeah. Because it's not like we've actually ever quite let go of Dwayne Barry as a plot point. Because that's been the start of, this is basically the latest point in a very long plot thread that's been going back to Series 2.
Absolutely.
I do feel that some of the episode's reveals are also really terrible. Like, so Mulder comes at the start of the episode and it's the whole, hey, look, Mulder's in this series again. But then he says, oh, right, so Emily's birth mother can't be this woman because that means her name means fake. And then he wanders into the nursing home later on and meets Anna Fugazi. Because, Mulder, did you actually check at all? Or did you just see Fugazi and say, that can't possibly be real?
I quite like it for kind of unintentional comedy as well. Because he questions her. It's like, oh, is that really your name? And the woman's absolutely bewildered. It's like, well, yes, my entire life.
Yeah, I like that, but it's the whole, his assertion at the start, though, just feels really flat when you put it like that. And I think, as you pointed out, what are we doing as a conspiracy when we're taking over from young women or people of childbearing age and implanting them in old people in a nursing home?
I've got to admit, this is where the episode hits a grey area for me, because you know how I feel about X-Files and rape plots.
Yes.
Which this is. We disguise it very well in this episode, but once again, this is medical rape.
Yeah.
But at the same kind of time is, if you are trying, essentially using elderly women as incubators for these hybrids, why? Is one, we've seen that you can do this in test tubes and fish tanks really, really easily, apparently, in the series. And two, with all the problems of kind of pregnancies in older women and the dangers to both the child and the baby, why would you use older women? Why would you not use young women? Like Scully, as you mentioned last week, we saw her abducted and her stomach being inflated, which was presumably her pregnancy.
Yeah.
Why are we now using elderly people? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't get that either. And also the fact that we've brought the shapeshifters back into it, which we're going to be pretty sure are aliens, no matter what anyone has to say on the matter of this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that confuses the matter, because otherwise you could say, well, in Redux, we saw a whole room full of abducted women being experimented on. Like, they look pretty young. Why don't you use them as your incubators?
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, apparently we're using these elderly patients. And as you said, that doesn't make any sense. And then Mulder pulls out a fetus that apparently, by all indications, it belongs to Scully, being stored in a cryo tube in the freezer. And it's still alive.
Yep.
And he didn't tell Scully about that. I will backtrack now, because one of the things that really blew my mind rewatching this episode was Mulder's court hearing. So putting Mulder putting Mulder in front of a judge based on 5 seasons is a fundamentally bad plan, because he has, with the exception of Born Again, he cannot behave in front of a judge. No hearing, no courtroom he has ever behaved properly.
Because Mulder has no filter.
No.
Or ability to lie creatively.
No. But, so, he and Scully go to meet this judge, and Scully realises, and it's great acting from Gillian Anderson, admittedly, as she's in this hearing, how much Mulder knows about her own body, her own medical history, she doesn't. And he has never seen fit to tell her.
I think we raised this as a point back in maybe Redux already.
And Memento Mori as well.
Memento Mori, it must have been.
Yeah.
When Mulder found the container full of Scully's ova, and as far as we were aware, never mentioned this to her.
Yeah, and now we've got confirmation, he didn't. And I really think she should have been more mad about this, because he comes out with an awful lot of very personal stuff.
And she accepts it so well. She looks absolutely mortified, terrified, horrified during this hearing.
Yeah.
But afterwards, she just kind of brushes it off as like, a mild shock.
No, Scully, this man, your co-worker, knows intimate details about you that he saw at no point fit to tell you.
I feel from a feminist bent as well that this is the kind of thing, I'm speaking from experience as a woman, is that you often find that men, and especially men in high positions or in medical positions, feel they know more about you than you know yourself. So this is Mulder saying, oh yeah, I was just doing it because it's what's best for you. Oh, thank you for taking away your colleague's agency.
Yeah. And, just, oof. I can't believe she took it so well. The other thing that got me about it was, and again, it comes back to Mulder can't behave in front of a judge, is he is spouting the conspiratorial line, explaining basically his version of Dwayne Barry onwards, as he sees it at this point in time, to a judge who doesn't believe him, and the relevance of it is basically nil, and Mulder's doing it preemptively because he's sure someone else is going to swoop in and undo this application for adoption just because of that. The man's a liability.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have lasted with Mulder this long, to be fair, but I would have been putting him for a department transfer at this point.
Yeah. Being able to find out what happened on those missing 3 months is one thing, although, to be fair, as far as Scully is concerned, she knows what happened. She was experimented on by a Japanese scientist, and that should be the end of it. The other thing that was, and it does feel like a kind of cruel joke, that Mulder points out that Scully is the biological mother of Emily, and the judge basically says that doesn't matter. It's like the point you made last week of, surely this should count for something significant, and apparently not. Although there's got to be some case files on this, because there has to have been mix-up in vitro fertilization somewhere. Someone must have had a case similar to this. But I imagine the adoption process is very fraught when that happens. But you think in a logical world that being a biological parent should make things much easier?
There certainly have been cases where there have been IVF mix-ups, and they're normally quite big scandals and have a heavy emotional toll because, you've raised a child just to discover it's not yours. But yeah, you think that there would be obviously they need investigation into this.
Yeah.
This woman has shown up and proved to be Emily's biological mother, who was unaware of her existence.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something in there that as a caseworker you'd need to look into further. But at the same time, science is there and has proven that Scully is the mother.
Yes, she's got a government, the FBI labs or whoever it was has got an actual thing come through saying definitively you are the mother of the child. And the fact that the judge just feels able to brush it off just feels maddening, really. At the same time, and I think this ties into something you found out about the episode of Gillian Anderson struggled with this episode. She's doing as well as she could, but it's very obvious she kind of gets shunted to one side while Mulder now takes centre stage again.
Yeah, as usual. But the issues that Gillian Anderson said she had, and I probably should have brought it up last week while we were watching Christmas Carol, to be honest, is the fact that she was trying to put herself in Scully's position to understand her reactions, if this was a tragic illness that was taking and going to rob her of her own daughter, Piper. But she found she couldn't do it because she'd only known this child playing Emily for such a short period of time, is she couldn't kind of summon the correct emotional response for this to be able to make it feel like it was convincing. And ultimately she was left kind of disappointed with her own performance in this. But this is also something that was picked up by a lot of critics at the time, is from the audience perspective as well, is you're expected to feel a lot for Emily and Scully's plight when we've known Emily for all of 5 minutes. In the greater scheme of things, an hour and a half ago, in X-Files terms, we didn't even know this child had existed.
No, and we had no idea she even could exist. We knew there was some weird mutterings about harvesting over to create possibly hybrids, but that was as far as we went.
And we didn't know that anything had been created specifically with Scully.
Exactly. So, and yeah, I mean, I still would say Gillian Anderson is doing the absolute best she can with what she's got, which is not much. But yeah, it's the ability to connect with Emily is a problem. And I think the episode is written in such a way where they feel that showing you the 3-year-old saying she's dying, also she's Scully's daughter, also she's part of the conspiracy, also she's got alien blood, etc., etc., is enough to counteract that, and it isn't.
The death of a child in something is always sad. There's a reason why movies shy away from showing children dying, because of the emotional response it causes. However, obviously it is sad that Emily dies in the episode because she is a little kid and she didn't ask for any of this. But at the same time it's not the kind of thing that makes you feel teary watching it or something like that. It's very hard to kind of get a true emotional response for a child who we've only known for less than 2 episodes and also hasn't actually even been on the screen much over that time.
No. I mean, if you'd introduced her in season 1, yeah, you could probably get away with this being absolutely devastating.
Or even if we'd introduced Emily at the start of this season, built for an entire season and killed her off in the finale.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That's how you do it, generally. You can't do it this brief. Which, again, comes back to my whole point of this whole plot line can have nothing to do with the film because this was forced in here and doesn't belong.
Yeah.
It should be located elsewhere. But anyway, I bring all that up because I think we need to have a new section of the show, which is why hasn't Mulder been fired this week? And the adjacent one of why hasn't Scully been fired this week?
Oh, I know what you're about to mention, and I read another review that was savage about how Mulder was portrayed in this episode. They just referred to him as a thug.
Yes. So this is the point that came up in the summary of Mulder goes to see Dr. Calderon and asks him for Emily's medical records because he's refusing to hand them over because they're basically based on proprietary medical investigations. Not sure how true that is in real life. That does feel that when the health of the patient's in conflict that you're going to give them away. Of course, this is all complicated because it's the conspiracy angle and he's an alien, he's shape-shifting alien bounty hunter type creature or something. We don't know what Calderon entirely is. But Mulder has met Emily that morning. It's been probably an hour, 2 hours since he's met Emily, and he's beaten up a doctor he doesn't know, pointed a gun at him point blank, been witnessed by security guard and other people in the office pointing a gun at a doctor, and everyone lets him walk away. No one calls the police. No one files a complaint at the FBI. Mulder still has his job. Pretty sure if you do this in real life and you don't arrest someone, because I think this is the whole law enforcement abusing their authority of he could drag Calderon in on some flimsy charge. He might skate by with that, but just threatening someone and walking out isn't likely to do him any favours.
I think, technically speaking, at least in UK medical terms, is your legal issue here is the fact that he would not release the files.
Yeah.
In the fact that if you say, I'm registered with my local GP, if I was taken ill elsewhere in the country and that doctor called my GP and said, we need her medical information, they have to release it to you.
Yeah.
He's point blank said, no, not doing that. And I think that could be Mulder's basis to go in there and actually arrest him for something, to be honest.
Yeah. Not beat him up. Because
and he does actually beat him up. Yeah. He's punching a man who's on the floor.
Yeah. And it's Mulder. And it just feels like it's... I know, the whole plotline feels really, we need to fill time. And we also need strong emotions. But we don't have the build to do it. And so Mulder flips completely out of character because this is not how Mulder does anything, because he's not Serpico or something.
He even leaves it with a threat as well, because he does the Terminator, I'll be back.
Yeah.
In front of all these witnesses as he's leaving.
And he's not fired. I'm still not going to get beyond this. And we'll get on the aftermath of that, I'll get to in a second. But then we want to move on to Scully not being fired this week, because Scully normally skates by okay on these things. He normally doesn't cross too many ethical lines. This one has the doctor and the adoption worker both point out to her she is not Emily's legal guardian. She has absolutely no right to dictate any treatment on this girl. As far as everyone's concerned, she's making her worse. And she is just... They keep pointing this out and they just let her keep doing it.
And ultimately, in the end as well, Scully makes the decision to stop her treatments.
Yeah.
So either way you're looking at it, you could paint Scully as being culpable for the death of a child.
Yes, and I'm astonished there is no court case that Scully is called up of, the People versus Dana Scully, death of Emily Sim. Because you interfered with the child's life, you are not her doctor, you are not her legal guardian, you are genetically her parent, but you have no legal authority over this girl at all, and you're telling people what to do. And I'm not surprised that people were going along with it, especially as nothing seemed to be helping her, and everyone's saying it's very sad, but we can't do anything about what's wrong with her.
It's also from the outside as well, is that the fake Dr. Calderon breaks in, injects Emily with something, and it starts making her better, to which the doctors say, well, evidently Dr. Calderon's medicine is working, whatever he's doing, it's doing the job, and Scully still says, no, it's the bad thing, we can't let him do that, we've got to keep him away from her. It's like, but you've just seen the kind of empirical evidence that this is making her well. From a doctor's perspective, I think we need to cart Scully out the room.
Yeah. And she's also clearly emotionally compromised and shouldn't be making decisions. But I think the other problem with it is that assumption that Dr. Calderon is helping is based on the one encounter, because he doesn't try to come back.
No.
There is no follow-up to this. You could actually read it very well as he's just interested in something to speed up her death. She was going to collapse anyway, but this is speeding up whatever is killing her.
But immediately after he's done it, she does suddenly take a turn for the better.
Well, I was going to say I'll offer an example of House, weirdly.
Okay.
So the very first episode of House is... Do you remember this one? This is the tapeworm in the brain.
When you talk about it. Oh, yes.
Tapeworm in the brain. So one of the points is partway through, they give her steroids. And she improves and then crashes just as the outbreak happens.
As always, yeah.
As always. But they do comment later on, it's a case of what happens if you try to treat someone with a tapeworm with steroids. Dr. Foreman says, at first they get a bit better, then they get a lot worse.
Okay.
So there's a precedent for whatever he's done. We're still making her seem better for a moment and then just exacerbating symptoms.
Fair enough. Yep. I'll let you have that argument.
But then I would also say that it's difficult to read, because if he was continuing treatment, why isn't he sneaking back in as a nurse? Or, constantly shapeshifting and coming back in and giving her more stuff? Because it's not like Scully blocks access to Emily.
No.
Because the shapeshifters could impersonate her doctor, that nurse, any other hospital staff.
The janitor.
The janitor. So I read it more as this was signing her death warrant.
You'd think that if they were going to kill her off, though, you could do it a lot quicker.
This is the X-Files. I know what you mean, though. I don't get it either. I mean, I think this is part of the mysterious conspiracy of we're not going to give you answers yet.
I have an interesting note as well on the casting of Emily, which leads into the first scene we see her in the hospital, I think is an MRI machine.
Oh, yeah.
Emily, when they filmed Christmas Carol originally, was played by a different 4-year-old girl. However, when they got her into the scene with the MRI filming Emily, she was so paralytically afraid of the MRI machine that she became incapable of coping and they could not calm her down and could not proceed filming this. So they had to reshoot all of her scenes in Christmas Carol as well with a different actress, just because they didn't realise when they started kind of casting for this that they'd offered the role to a girl who was terrified of hospitals, and the second episode is entirely set in a hospital.
I've got to wonder if that's part of why this doesn't seem to work. If you have had to hastily refilm all of these scenes with a new actress.
I believe the current Emily that they've got is an actress who they previously had for an episode of Millennium or something like that.
Okay.
So they just brought in this actress they'd worked with for Millennium to kind of fill the gap left by this person with a severe, I don't know what you call a fear of hospitals actually, but a fear hospitalophobia.
Okay. It's, well, you'd think you'd sort of check that ahead of time, really, wouldn't you?
Well, they do kind of do these off the cuff, I'm assuming therefore that they didn't realise that the second episode involving this child was going to be the thing that would trigger her phobia.
Yeah, again, in terms of a conspiracy piece, I can only assume it's a lingering idea that someone, I'm going to guess it's Frank Spotnitz actually, has been considering for a while. This is the logical next step from Memento Mori, that this storyline was going to fall somewhere. But as you said, it wasn't meant to come here. And it certainly wasn't meant to come here with so little build-up.
Yeah. I do think it is something that could have worked better with the correct timing.
Yeah, as you said, correct timing, it needs to be over a much longer time period. We need to get to know Emily so we actually care when she dies.
Yeah, Christmas Carol and Emily need to be separated. They can't be a two-parter. Because you need the introduction and Scully becoming a mom. And then I think a season building of Scully becoming Emily's guardian.
Yeah.
And then the Emily equivalent episode.
Yes. I think possibly the reason why they didn't do it is you're going to have real problems getting this to work in an episode arc when you've got Kitsunegari stuck right in the middle there. As we get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm really mystified about this nursing home, though. To go back to the nursing home.
What mystifies you about it?
Well, it's not so much mystifying as it feels... How they frame the episode feels really weird. So, Mulder follows Dr. Calderon after he's beaten him up, and this hasn't been arrested or reported, fired, whatever. It follows Dr. Calderon off to his nursing home.
But doesn't know it's a nursing home at that point.
No, he doesn't know it's a nursing home. And basically he's getting there too slow, so Calderon meets two men in black, they kill him, leave Calderon on the floor while they shapeshift and walk out the building. And Mulder follows Calderon back out to his car and off to Prangan Pharmaceuticals, I think? Okay. And then Mulder goes back to the same building later on, which is one of those, we should have looked into it more the first time, but I can understand why you're stalking the guy. And he discovers a nursing home. And it's... So, you're telling me Dr. Calderon met the two men in black in an active nursing home, and they killed Dr. Calderon and left his toxic spewing corpse on the floor, and no one else in the nursing home noticed this happening.
It was a quiet room.
Clearly.
I've got to question the safety of nursing homes in America, because we've learned over the course of the X-Files is we first of all had Excelsius Day and all the horrible things that went on in that nursing home. Then we're testing our kind of creepy black oil vaccination on people in nursing homes.
Yeah.
And now we're actually impregnating elderly ladies in this nursing home to make our hybrid army.
Yeah.
Are there any actually good nursing homes in America?
Apparently not. So, on that, going back to that impregnation thing, Emily is a actual child.
She's at least 3.
So,
yeah.
And the inference in the episode is Anna Fugazi gave birth to her.
Yeah.
Putting aside, as you said at first, the medical risks of doing this, which are substantial for a healthy woman, let alone someone who is not actually of childbearing age.
I guess she's either given birth to her or for some weird reason is we are gestating these fetuses
then taking
in the
them out
women, and then taking them out and putting them into the tubes.
Yeah.
Because Mulder does find the test tube baby
I
as
suppose,
well,
and then put them
which
into
is a
fish tank.
literal test tube baby in a test tube. But,
I was going to say, there's only so long they can be pregnant with before they'll notice that they've...
Well, that was my thought, is that even though these are old ladies, they don't seem to be senile.
No.
So it's not that they can't remember this happening or anything like that, and you think they'd recall pregnancy.
Yeah. I think it just goes back to the whole... This feels like horror medical rape just for the sake of it, because you can do the fertilization doesn't have to occur inside a womb or anything. You've got enough weird alien tech. I think you can just circumvent the human aspect entirely.
We've seen clones in fish tanks already.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we've seen there were smaller fetuses in Colony, because Scully found one. She found a really small fetus in a sort of plastic bag after the bounty hunter was trying to destroy everything.
Yeah.
I don't believe we needed to implant these women at all. I don't understand. Is it just is it just to sort of have Mulder be wrong at the start and then meet Anna Fugazi? Is that the entire reason we're doing this?
It is really, really confused, and I've got to admit I don't like it.
No, it's terrible.
I don't remember from last time I watched The X-Files there being this much medical rape in it. And it's just, I have used the phrase medical rape in the last few episodes more than I am comfortable doing so.
Yeah, it just keeps happening.
Mm.
And we can't get away from it no matter what we try, apparently.
It's the worst way of portraying rape in anything. And of course you can do stories about rape and the horrible impact it does have on the victims. But using it as the bad thing that happens to women just throws me into a rage, to be honest. We're just kind of perpetuating this as something that happens to women, not the horrible, horrible crime and the life-changing psychological event that is rape.
Yes. And also that the episodes certainly seem to imply that you can never get away from this, that no matter where you are, the government will swoop in, or the aliens will swoop in, and do this to you.
Yeah.
You could be too old, it doesn't matter.
But again, it's only a threat that affects women.
Yes.
We don't really see much of, other than Max, I guess, male abductions in the series are very rare compared to the female ones.
God, can you imagine the flip side of this, of the old men being abducted and all their semen being extracted?
Yep, we've got none. It's all gone.
It's always the bloody over, isn't it?
I guess it's because women have a finite number of them.
I know, and that...
So you can't have the same shock for men of all your semen has been removed in the same sense as a woman could have all of their ova removed. But it's horrible. There's no way of doing a similar plot for men that has the same level of discomfort.
I mean, the only thing I can think of, and it's really stupid, is doing something like Junior, the film.
Oh, Mpreg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the only kind of similar way you can get this idea of body horror for men.
And it doesn't, outside of fandom circles, there's no way of doing this which doesn't feel inherently comedic in some way.
Like Junior.
It's basically, it's not plausible or not entirely possible at the current time. It's purely there for, I don't know, comedy value.
Yeah.
You're not meant to take it entirely seriously.
I guess it's comedy at worst, weird fetish at best, and there's no real middle ground there.
No, because again, I think it's impossible. The fact this is genuine science fiction, science fantasy territory.
We're watching a sci-fi show.
Yeah, one that one that claims it's grounded, but yeah, we've got into, by this point, I don't know what we're even bothering.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and I'd like the X-Files to stop.
Yeah, I'm sure, not sure, I don't want to say sure, I would not be surprised if there's another incident coming up that we've completely overlooked and forgotten about.
I've got to admit, I forgot about so much of this.
Apparently, again, people point out that this was a thing that kept happening in the 90s, and mystical pregnancies was a thing that happened quite a lot. Star Trek Next Generation did this. And if you look at writings about it at the time, it's seen as a science fiction fantasy thing. If you look at stuff that's sort of some years later, people then start to say, wait a minute, this is the same thing again. You've just given it a different coat of paint.
Yeah.
This was apparently something that kept happening in the 90s. This was deemed okay for some reason. Whatever mindset allowed to go through in the 90s, that's bad. It's still bad now. It shouldn't have happened. Do we have anything lighter about this episode? I suppose there's Frohickey, though Frohickey being creepy and lecherous again.
I'm not sure why we call Frohickey with pregnancy questions now.
No, I don't either. Again, Frohike barely needed to be in this episode, but it's basically Tom Braidwood is on set anyway, so it's really to stick him in. So again, why he wasn't in Redux 2, I don't understand.
I still think as well that we've seen that Frohike generally does care for Scully, is I'd expect him more to be there and not on the end of the phone for Mulder.
Yeah, again, it's that somehow everyone involved has forgotten these two pivotal early appearances, One Breath and Blessing Way, of when Frohike went out of his way to comfort Scully. And again, he is the director of photography. He is present anyway. You don't need to get him in for this.
I know I've commented before, but Frohike is kind of seedy and lecherous, but he does like Scully, and he does genuinely like Scully.
Yeah. So again, this is the kind of thing I expect from comic writing, where, Western comics especially, where a new writer takes over and they'll just discard a whole lot of stuff the previous writer was doing, or this nice thing that the previous writer did isn't relevant anymore. That's how the X-Files feels, and it shouldn't be, because this is what your showrunner is meant to say, no, you've got to keep this bit consistent. This is the kind of thing that has happened before. If Frohike can't be there for Scully, say why. I mean, admittedly, they're on the other side of the country. That's a good start, but Frohike could still ask about Scully. The fact that she's trying to adopt someone is a big thing in any potential relationship he might have with her.
Yeah.
This is his goal, I thought.
You say is there anything light about this? The most positive thing that just popped into my head is there's less Bill Scully Jr. in this episode.
True, but he still has to get there in the end just to twist the knife at the last second. Oh, look, Scully, here's my son, Matthew.
At the funeral for Scully's girl.
For Scully's daughter, yeah. I mean, I get it from what I got. It's that, the family's there to support Scully. It's just bad coincidence that Tara gave birth in between these two moments.
I feel that there's an Am I the Asshole post going here, though, of Am I the Asshole for bringing my newborn infant to the funeral for my sister-in-law's 3-year-old girl?
Yeah, can you imagine that as about the asshole post? So you get into detail, everyone immediately says yes or no, and then you get into detail. She only found out she was the mother of this girl 2 days ago at Christmas. And then you get people going, what? This isn't true. I believe this really happened. But yes, less Bill Scully is definitely a good thing. The whole family are barely in it. I mean, we do get Bill Scully just being obnoxious to Mulder as well when they have the hearing for the adoption. And Bill Scully just blocks Mulder's way, and it's, what are you doing, man? Who are you?
I mean, Mulder arguably saved his sister's life previously, so it's understandable that he would hate him when Bill was clearly gunning for Scully to just die.
I do wonder is there an inheritance angle that Bill Scully's actually working on?
It's, after Dana's out of the way, I just have to finish off Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, he cares for her, but in this kind of weird, kind of abstract way that I don't think actually feels like family, does it? Basically, she seems to annoy him constantly, and if she has anything to do with Mulder, that's even worse. That has reminded me of our weird, we couldn't get Melissa in for this episode for some reason.
Oh, there's the phone call where nobody speaks.
Yeah, it's just static. Did you not get to record a few more lines, or just loop the same one she said last time of she needs your help?
Yeah.
No, apparently Melissa just stopped talking for some reason.
Even Melissa's ghost has given up on this plot.
And also, Mulder, after everything that's happened, and I understand Mulder, you're good with kids again. That's nice to see.
Oh, the Mr. Potato Head bit.
Yeah,
that's sweet.
Mulder, you're actually doing the right thing. But, Mulder, do you not want to investigate this apparition from the dead sister of your partner? That's an X-File in itself. Putting Emily to one side, there was this other supernatural thing going on that has never been explained, and basically everyone's given up on.
Yeah, there really is no explanation for it as well, other than the fact it was either Melissa's ghost or Scully's guardian angel watching out for her.
Yeah, and I know it's basically irrelevant in the main thing, but you'd think Mulder would fasten on to that. He's fastened on to less than that.
Yeah, it feels small potatoes compared to everything else that's going on, to be honest.
It does, and we have enough relatives of Eddie Van Blunt wandering around this episode to deal with as it is. That's our stance, and we're going to stick to it until proven wrong.
Well, we don't believe in aliens anymore, so it's got to be all those Eddie Van Blunts. I'm writing my case notes on this one now, though, and I think we could clearly argue that it is more Van Blunts, given that they all seem to be working in fertility clinics.
That's very true. Oh, it's horrible. It's all horrible the way down. I mean, admittedly, we still don't know that Eddie Van Blunt had green blood, but then Emily only had it in a cyst, whereas the shapeshifters had it all over. I don't know anymore.
The only explanation is it's Eddie Van Blunt.
Yeah, until proven otherwise.
Yeah, because we don't have aliens anymore, so explanation I have.
Cool. Shame those shapeshifters did it off screen when Mulder couldn't see them. Also, the fact that Mulder was duped by the fake Kresge so easily. Oh, I captured him, it's fine. It's like, wasn't he bleeding toxic blood? Oh, don't worry, I'll arrest him. And he runs up to his car and Mulder just lets him go.
And then realises he's getting into the bad guy's Jeep.
Yeah. Mulder, do you want to try and pursue him a bit? Shoot out his tyres? Something? No? Okay.
We can only use that gun for threatening doctors.
Yeah. Oh. Well, do we have anything else this episode, or shall we launch ourselves into a different mess?
Let's go for the mess, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you've covered everything I need to rant about Emily.
Oh my god. Okay.
I feel better. That was a load off my shoulders.
Yes. However, so our second episode is Kitsunegari, directed by Daniel Sackheim, written by Vince Gilligan and Tim Minear, first broadcast on the 4th of Jan 1998. Oh boy, the guest cast.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Michael Dobson played the US Marshal. I don't remember which one he is, but
right.
One of them. So, he has primarily done voice work.
Okay.
We keep finding voice actors in this, it's great.
What do you do?
So, My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, where he played Bulk Biceps and others.
Oh, I remember Bulk Biceps.
He reprised this role in the Equestria Girls films and in Pony Life, the new series. That character is carried over with the same voice.
Oh.
He's also in Ranma Half, Dragon Ball Z, Escaflowne, Inuyasha, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, and Death Note.
Oh, neat.
We also have Ty Olsson, who played the young orderly, who I think is the young guy at the start.
The one who lets him escape.
Yeah. Who was in Lake Placid, Dreamcatcher, X-Men 2, who I think is the guy Mystique injects with the medal.
Okay.
Because he looks about the same.
Yeah, it could be.
Chronicles of Riddick, Alien vs. Predator Requiem,
Oh.
Breaking Dawn 1 and 2, Godzilla,
The one with Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston, Harsh Realm, ha ha ha. I'll stop being cool about Harsh Realm one day. I'll watch Harsh Realm one day, but I don't really want to. Kingdom Hospital,
Oh, I like that.
Dead Like Me, and Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, the US version.
Oh, neat.
And last, we have Diana Scarwid as Linda Bowman. She's in Psycho 3, What Lies Beneath, and she was Mother Superior in Pushing Daisies.
Ah.
So, would you like to give us a synopsis of fox hunting? Wait, Kitsunegari.
Not really, but I'll do it anyway. Our episode this time begins in Lawton, Virginia, where we see Robert Patrick Modell, formerly seen in Pusher, undergoing physiotherapy after apparently surviving the gunshot wound to his head that was inflicted by Mulder. He escapes from a prison hospital, after which they just find the guard on duty sitting in his cell, dazedly saying he had to go. An FBI manhunt begins, led by Walter Skinner, with Mulder and Scully also on call as chief investigators. They arrive at the prison and learn that Modell had suddenly woken up from his coma 6 months previously. However, they're not sure how he's got away so effectively, given he was pretty immobile. Scully is concerned that Mulder is playing into Modell's game once again by leading the investigation. They learn from Modell's physical therapist that the only people who really visited him were a group of nuns called the Little Sisters of Charity. Modell calls the prison and asks to speak to Mulder, but Mulder refuses to listen to what he has to say, even though Modell is pretty insistent that he has something important to tell him. They trace the call to a sports shop in Occoquan, Virginia, where they also find a Carbo Bar wrapper left on the counter, one of the protein bars that we've previously seen that Modell favours. The storekeeper at the sports shop is found wandering dazed down the street, wearing Modell's shed clothing, and again just saying that he had to go. We cut to Modell, who we see standing holding a picture of a young woman, inside a house where a man beside him has been left covered in paint. The paint, of course, is cerulean blue. As Mulder and Scully find the scene of this murder, they identify the dead man as Nathan Bowman, who was the prosecutor at Modell's trial. There are words written in Japanese kanji all over the world, which are translated to Kitsunegari, or fox hunt. A paint smudge leads the agents to Nathan's wife, Linda Bowman, who is a realtor who has an appointment apparently made by a Fox Mulder at a commercial property nearby. The police head there first, and Mulder uses his influence to affect the first 2 officers to arrive. However, nobody finds him at the scene. Linda arrives late and, much to her confusion, finds all the police and FBI already there. When Mulder and Scully tell her about what happened to her husband, Linda is surprisingly not that shocked, but does mention the fact that her husband talked about Modell often because he was his big break. Mulder starts to grow suspicious, especially as Modell's actions do not fit his previous modus operandi, in the sense that he hasn't yet actually killed anyone, and previously he was definitely not above doing that. Mulder investigates a nearby building and does actually run into Modell. Modell once again tries to get Mulder to listen to him and eventually breaks his resolve. However, immediately after this we see Mulder leaving the building, dazed as the previous people, and just saying that Modell had to leave. After this, Mulder tells Scully that he does not believe that Modell is actually on a killing spree at all and is starting to grow suspicious of Linda, believing that she is the killer and she might even have the same powers as Modell. Both Scully and Skinner believe that Mulder is compromised and is far too close to this case. Skinner suspends Mulder on the spot, however, Mulder vows to prove that his theory is the correct one. He speaks with Modell's therapist once again, who mentions that one of the nuns belonging to the Little Sisters of Charity had once called Modell a conquered warrior. On a hunch, Mulder tries to show her a picture of Linda, however, the phone rings, and after the therapist says that she is currently with Mulder, she immediately walks away from her desk and sticks her hand into a fuse box, fatally electrocuting herself. Linda has, in the meantime, been taken to an FBI safe house, and a police car arrives with Modell. He enters the room that Linda is in and locks the door behind him. Mulder tells Scully about the therapist's desk and urges her to ensure that Linda is kept away from any phones. At the safe house, Skinner finds the door of Linda's room locked. He kicks it down to find Modell with Linda. Modell turns on Skinner and calmly states that he has a gun. Skinner shoots him instantly, seeing the revolver in Modell's hand, but as soon as he's on the ground, Skinner realises that instead Modell's hand is just curled around to the shape of a pointing gun. As Modell is taken away to hospital, Mulder arrives and believes that Modell forced Skinner to shoot him on purpose in order to protect Linda. Scully says that Linda has been taken home, at which an annoyed Mulder leaves to see Modell in hospital. While Mulder is waiting for him to wake up, a nurse enters the hospital room and tells Mulder that she needs to change the patient's bandages. As Mulder leaves, it is revealed that the nurse is actually Linda Bowman, wearing a piece of paper with nurse written on it like a badge. Linda then sits with Modell and talks his heart into stopping. Another nurse runs past Mulder and he follows her into Modell's room to see Modell being pronounced dead. He notices the nurse badge is now sitting on the nightstand, and on the back has the words 214 Channel Avenue written on it, which leads him to another commercial property. Mulder visits that address alone and finds Scully pointing a gun at him, claiming that Linda is controlling her. Mulder can't do anything to stop her as Scully turns the gun on herself and shoots herself in the head. Mulder then hears footsteps behind him and turns around to see Linda Bowman pointing a gun at him. Linda claims that she is actually Scully and states personal information about Mulder. She fires a shot at a figure that she sees moving behind Mulder, at which point he immediately realises that it is indeed Scully standing in front of him, and that Scully has shot Linda over his shoulder. The group meet again in Skinner's office, where it's revealed that a brain scan on Linda Bowman has shown that she also has an advanced temporal lobe tumour, which is the same as Robert Modell's, who is revealed to be her fraternal twin. The two of them had been separated at birth and had only recently discovered each other's existence. Although Skinner points out to Mulder that he did ultimately solve the case, Mulder has misgivings, especially due to the fact he nearly killed Scully. He feels that ultimately he did lose the game.
Thank you. It's one of these things where at one point in time I thought every X-Files episode basically set itself up for you could do a follow-up episode later on, and we have Squeeze and Tombs as examples of this. And now we have this, which is a good reason not to do that, because Pusher did not need a sequel and left no opening for a sequel.
It should be noted as well that Pusher is often found in top lists of X-Files episodes because it is an exceptionally good Monster of the Week episode as a standalone.
And this one is nowhere near that position.
No.
This one's down the bottom somewhere. Actually, no, it's probably around the middle, but...
It did have mixed reviews on the time of release, and they're oddly polarising reviews as well, because people either really liked it or really didn't.
I don't remember ever liking this one, and it is, well, not so much feels unnecessary, it is outright unnecessary. The state you left Pusher in was basically, that was his chapter ended. You damaged Mulder and Scully's relationship. That was it. This was the whole point of the exercise.
It should be noted that this originally was not scripted to be a follow-up to Pusher. It was, I believe the working title of the episode was something like Word of God. It was supposed to be about a convict who heard God's voice while he was in prison, clearly telling him that he needed to kill one specific person. And the idea of the episode was going to be this guy breaking out and trying to accomplish this task, with only Mulder seeing the morally grey area of perhaps this is right and, he should be killing this guy.
You think it'd be Scully saying that?
Nope, it was going to be Mulder.
Okay.
But it was somewhere along the development in the fact that they suddenly needed an episode to be scripted, and I think it was Spotnitz suggested the fact that they could replace the guy with the Word of God with Pusher and run with it that way.
I'm bemused then that Vince Gilligan wants, because Vince Gilligan helped write this, didn't, as soon as he got us told her, said, no, that's not how Pusher worked, and we shouldn't do this. Let's have another serial killer.
I'm not sure how involved Gilligan was, but my feeling is that this episode just lacks the kind of wit I associate with Vince Gilligan. The only thing that feels a bit Gilligan-ish is the ending, I think. The kind of zero-sum ending where Mulder's technically won but doesn't feel like he has.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. And I think Modell himself, when he speaks, he's got the right kind of presence still. That could be the actor.
He doesn't have the charisma that Pusher had, though.
No, but then again, you have got the whole defeated, broken, and he's clinging on to life. So you can excuse it. It's not the same.
I think we never expressly say it in the episode, but a lot of people in it seem to misunderstand Pusher's kind of mentality. It's previously Pusher believed himself to be Ronin.
Yeah.
So, as loosely as he did follow it, he did have a kind of Bushido sort of code. Which, in Bushido, you have the idea of if someone betters you, they're a person to be respected. So we do see in the episode, although it's not really drawn attention to, the fact that he does respect Mulder.
Yeah, and I think that not drawing attention to it, you needed to, because as a concept, your American audience are not used to this idea. You need to get it across.
No, the American audience is more that a defeated villain would want revenge.
Yeah.
But that's not how Bushido works.
No, and I think that needed to be factored. The audience need to be made aware of this for why he's doing what he's doing.
Mm.
The other thing, though, and again, we're coming back to that show Bible thing, is how Pusher is characterized in this episode doesn't bear that much resemblance to the episode Pusher. Because serial killer is one of those things that, yes, he technically was, but in actual legal terms, he didn't kill anyone. You'll have a hell of a time proving this.
He's also not a serial killer. That's a really specific definition. He was an assassin.
Yes, and they're that too. Also, they claim he's a cop killer. It's like, yes, he did kill a few cops. That wasn't what he did primarily. He took contract killings.
And he was doing this because, essentially, he was on the run. They were onto him.
Yes, and he was also playing with them. This was all part of his game. And the way they characterize him, though, is by going near him is devastating. He walked through so many areas of normal people. If you weren't someone he could use or a threat to him, he would leave you alone. Those Japanese businessmen in Pusher did not die afterwards.
And in this episode, he's always very reticent to kill people as well, like the store clerk, or the orderly when he's leaving.
Which I know in some reviews people said, why he didn't kill anyone? That's not what he does.
Even though he's blatantly not, he essentially views himself as being a samurai.
Yeah.
Which even his sister notes when she refers to him as the conquered warrior. It is in his own mind, that's what he is.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So, and again, that needed to be stressed more. We don't have enough of that for it to come across properly.
The only time we really do make note of the kind of Japanese influences on Pusher is the Kitsunegari scene.
Yeah, which is, I think you described it earlier as really arrogant, and it's such a bizarre situation when you get into what happened there.
Well, I did some research into this purely because Japanese is a very strange language because it's the kanji in particular, which is what we see painted on the walls. These kanji were all written centuries upon centuries ago, and you can't create new ones. Basically, any borrow words from our language, for example, like let's say ice cream, a word that would not have a kanji for it, would be written in katakana instead, which is their alphabet that kind of treats borrowed words. So I wasn't sure when I saw the word Kitsunegari if it would exist in Japanese, purely because foxes are sacred in Japan, so I didn't believe they would have a kanji encompassing killing a fox. And I'm correct, it turns out. That the kanji we see on the walls, they hired somebody to create through the episode, which isn't really how kanji works.
No. And it really doesn't seem to adhere to what I would expect Japanese to be. Like, the Kitsune no Gari would be what I would expect.
Hunting of foxes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's not what we got.
No.
So that was weird. And so, yeah, and the fact they got someone in to create a word that doesn't exist, and that leads a lot of questions about Modell and his sister. And
technically that's his sister that wrote Fox Hunt on the wall, not Modell as far as we can tell.
But presumably he saw that and knew what was going on.
Yeah. He's clearly very interested in Japanese culture, and I'm going to assume he could probably read that.
Yeah.
How he read it is beyond me if it's a word they've made up, but there we go.
Which when the translator comes in and says, "Oh, it's Kitsune." Well, she says Kitsunegari, but I think you said it should be Kitsunekari.
If you read it the way it's written down, it would be Kitsunekari with a K. But cat and gat are pronounced very similarly in Japanese. But
we're doing really well with our accuracy in this episode. So Patrick Modell Robert Patrick Modell. I don't know why I keep missing Robert off, but I do. Robert Patrick Modell woke up 6 months ago after being put into a coma that he was not expected to recover from. I'll let them have that this can happen.
We do brush it off like that in the episode. Scully says it's rare, but yeah, it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. Certainly not the mindset that Pusher left us in. So he's woken up. What I don't understand is, before it's clear it's him at the start, you see someone going through physiotherapy in a prison, and you've got the two orderlies who are watching him like a hawk, saying you don't take any chances around this man. He's not gagged. His entire threat is his ability to speak.
I was wondering if they actually thought he could speak, to be fair, but then later in the episode, the physiotherapist mentioned that she'd had some conversations with him.
Yeah, and it's... You know... Presumably there's a report of what he did. I mean, admittedly, maybe you didn't believe Mulder's thing, but you've got enough evidence from a wide swath of people that if you encounter him and he wants to, he can make you do whatever he wants you to. It's single target, but it can be done. And yeah, that's not the provision. They treat him like he's actually physically dangerous, which has never been his thing.
And obviously he isn't, because he's dying.
Yes.
And somehow he's still dying because this is the slowest moving terminal brain tumour I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah. But he wasn't physically dangerous in Pusher either.
No.
The whole threat was if he talked to you.
He never, as you mentioned earlier in this episode, he's never actually killed anyone.
No. It's not like the Saw films where Jigsaw never killed anyone. As a whole, I think you can justify Jigsaw being charged with murder. Pusher, very difficult to prove.
He words it himself in the actual Pusher episodes where he said, "Oh, didn't you hear they all killed themselves?"
Yeah.
Which is absolutely right. It's why you can't pin him down, because how do you prove that a man is so dangerous he can talk someone into killing themselves?
This isn't Jigsaw throwing you into a barbed wire maze or something and saying, if you get out, you're fine. If not, that's your own fault. So, yeah, I think one of you we can charge pretty easily. It still feels really odd they keep having these mass forces of people going after Modell. I mean, in some ways, that's good, because you always have like 3 or 4 people in every group, because the push only works on one person. So if you see someone being influenced, one person jumps the guy being influenced, the other people jump Pusher. That'll be a way of dealing with it.
You just have to watch it, because it could be the one guy is influenced is carrying an automatic rifle or something like that.
But if you were making a sequel to Pusher, that would be, we know how to deal with him. You need to have you have to have a group of multiple people. You cannot engage in one-on-one. And yet, people do. And like, Mulder talks to him on the phone, and while Scully is sort of saying, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone, it just feels like how Pusher worked in Pusher is very different to how he's speaking to Mulder now, he's pleading. He's not doing the whole calm, seductive, I don't care voice. This is, I'm trying to tell you something, Mulder. Shut up. And Mulder refuses to.
You think this would be something that Mulder would be able to recognise with his past as a psychoanalyst as well? Mulder does catch on to it eventually that Pusher is behaving differently.
But it takes a long while.
But this is not arrogant Pusher with no fear of death.
No.
This is Pusher who's desperate to impart some important information, which is evidently the fact that he has a sister with the same power.
Yeah. And Scully doesn't feel like Scully feels weird in this episode. Because I don't get the impression she believes the events of Pusher happened.
I saw a review that referred to Scully in this episode as being a humorless scold.
I think that's a bit extreme, but she's characterised very like season 1 again, where she doesn't believe anything supernatural happened, despite what she personally witnessed on a few occasions.
But she does accept the fact that Pusher is dangerous and there is something there.
Yeah, but she doesn't believe it's purely down to what he can say to you.
Mm.
Skinner also feels out of place in this episode, because they do not deal with the fact that Skinner has been on the receiving end of this. He hasn't been pushed, but he has been attacked by someone who had no reason to do it, and Modell talked her into doing it.
And she could not explain her actions afterwards either.
And while we know that she did keep her job, or at least kept her job in the FBI, it feels a short-sighted thing where Skinner doesn't say anything. Skinner has personal experience of how this works and what can happen, and that just doesn't come up.
They also have the evidence of things from last time, like him walking into the FBI office wearing the badge.
Yeah.
They've got it on camera. They've seen that he did this and no one stopped him. So
exactly.
You've got the evidence of something that he can do.
Yes. And I suppose we can get into... I don't feel that we understood the power, how it actually worked again. Because I know we can make an argument that Linda has a slightly different version of his abilities to Pusher. But I think as we were watching the episode, Pusher didn't really make you see things in the past, like the rattlesnake.
I think the only argument is possibly the truck in the first one. And again, it's not that he made them see something different, it was the fact that he made them ignore something that was there.
Yeah.
But in this one, he seems to legitimately cause you to hallucinate. There's the rattlesnake, there's him holding the gun. He can just make you see things that he wants you to see.
Yeah, and it's like, making someone see the gun, that was Sleepless where that happened before.
Yeah.
That was Tony Todd did that.
Yeah.
Hang on, why do we keep coming back to the same the same things? And...
Indeed, it's closer possibly to Sleepless's power.
Yeah, and I wonder if in the official story there's a missing step somewhere, and basically is Tony Todd available? We'll come up with some reason why he's still around.
Yeah.
And Pusher is the second choice down.
Actually, they picked Pusher because he's a fan favourite, much like bringing back Max Fennick and Eugene Victor Toombs previously, is because Pusher is one of the most popular characters the X-Files has ever produced. And I can understand it, he's a great villain.
He is. At the same time, this is kind of an indicator of why you don't want to do it. I have a sneaking suspicion there are two possible explanations why Toombs escaped this. The first is it's entirely the same writing team, because it's Morgan and Wong did both Squeeze and Toombs. I think the other one is probably temporal. The fact they did them so close together.
Mm.
They were in the same mindset and had the same kind of ethos. The nature of the series is still the same. Whereas season 5 of the X-Files is quite different to season 3 now. And Tim Minear, I don't think you should have been involved in this episode. Sorry, dude. I'm not. How have you done this? This isn't good.
Some of the nicest things about the episodes are just when it directly harked back to Pusher, like the cerulean blue is a gentle paint in this episode.
Yes.
And also her going to the hospital wearing the nurse badge.
Yeah, although I thought the weirdness about that was, again, it could be different powers, is she's transformed into seeming like a nurse.
A different person as well.
A different personality, yeah. And you feel that would require a different mindset to it, but again, maybe her ability works slightly differently, because we're going to have to set aside the absolute implausibility of two people with the same brain tumour getting similar powers.
They are fraternal twins with exactly the same brain tumour in exactly the same place that's given them exactly the same powers.
Yeah, no.
Only he seems a lot more debilitated by it than she does as well. Because even in Pusher, he was not in a good way.
Yes, there's like a few times he's tried to flee and he sort of just crashed his car instead and couldn't actually escape.
Which again makes it somewhat surprising that he's still alive just on the basis of his cancer should have killed him by now.
Yes. one of the weird narrative problems I have with this episode, Pusher escaping prison doesn't actually feel motivated, and I know that Linda has been turning up in her guise as a nun as part of the Little Sisters of Charity, but it's not like she visited that day we see him escape, and then he escaped because of that, because he recognised who she was. She's been coming over a period of, 6 months was that? Or 6 weeks?
Yeah, you're correct on 6 months. It both said that Pusher woke up 6 months ago and also that she discovered his existence 6 months ago, so it can't have been any more than that.
No. So, in a prison break kind of scenario, I mean, Toombs has a good reason for why he was still in the place he was, and other ones, but you'd expect it to be Robert Patrick Medaille is being given physiotherapy in prison. One day, this nun walks in. They have a very confusing conversation to anyone listening. Then Robert Patrick Medaille breaks out of prison. That's how it works, or how you'd expect it to work.
I am going to assume that it's a piece of information we haven't been given, because Medaille is trying to protect Mulder throughout this entire thing. So in her last visit, she must have said something to indicate the fact that she's going to get revenge for him.
Yeah.
And therefore, due to his Bushido, his honour, Medaille needs to stop that.
Yeah. But again, we're not showing it as in happening that morning, and then now he has to escape now in order to save Mulder. That link's broken. It's very much a case of, and I imagine it might be misdirecting for the audience, but it's very much, it seems like he decided he was strong enough to leave prison. Quite in parallel to this, Linda has decided she's going to kill Fox Mulder. And can we just say, Kitsunegari, right, fox hunting, we know what this is all in aid of. This is to kill Fox Mulder. She doesn't try to kill Mulder until the last 5 minutes of the episode. She makes no efforts to murder this man.
There's also no reason for her delays as well, because if we go back to her first kill of the prosecutor, she'd been married to him 2 months and has killed him now.
Yeah. What on earth is going on? It's like, okay, so maybe she used her ability to make Medaille break out of prison. There's still a lot of time lags in here, and there's no coordination between them because he's kind of stalking around and trying to warn Mulder. And then it's not clear what he was trying to do with Linda when he got there. Was he trying to kill her?
At least what I read online inferred the fact he was trying to protect her from Skinner. But if he had not been there, Skinner would not have pulled a gun on them anyway.
No.
So I'm not sure what we're doing.
No, this episode is really confusing in a way that Pusher isn't. It's frustrating.
Pusher is very, very clear and easy to follow.
Yeah.
And fast-paced as well.
And this was not. And so, yeah, I don't understand what Pusher wanted to do aside from, I mean, warning Mulder, again, that whole Bushido thing, that's great. It would be better if it was clearer, but I can understand where that's coming from. If Medaille was trying to defeat Linda, that would make sense too. If he's trying to kill Linda, that would make sense. Something. But I don't know what he wanted to do to Linda ultimately because Skinner interrupted them, and he never explained to anyone.
I personally think we've really done Pusher himself a disservice here because of the fact that she essentially talks Medaille to death when he's in hospital. We don't get a showdown between them.
No.
And what you really need when you've got these two forces with identical powers and him being the more experienced of the two is we need our samurai battle, essentially, the two of them to face off.
Yes, and I suspect either you have Mulder caught in the middle, both of them influencing him, or they have one each. So Medaille's got Mulder and Linda's got Scully, and they're fighting with them.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm imagining it like one of these kind of Akira Kurosawa fights, which I'm sure Medaille, as the Ronin, would have been familiar with as well, where you have the two samurai facing each other on a hilltop.
Yeah. I suppose that's the other thing that doesn't jive right is we got the whole Pusher was very much into Japanese culture as a concept. And it just feels too much to sort of say Linda's into Japanese culture or she's done a crash course in the last 6 months to get into this.
She evidently does not understand, well, even Medaille's sort of twisted idea of romanticised Japanese culture because of the fact that if she did, she wouldn't want to get revenge for him.
No. So
he was bested by the greater warrior.
Yeah. So I don't understand what's going on at all. And I mean, the other thing you've got is, and I know it's just it's fan service basically, it's cerulean blue paint.
Yeah.
How does she know that? That's not going to be in police reports. He might volunteer to it in prison, but you'd think someone would say, yeah, they kept talking about this colour, this cerulean colour, this blue colour, calming breeze. It's a joke, but why is it in here?
I'll give them a pass. It's cute.
It's cute, but I do want to know why Linda knows about cerulean blue paint.
We've mentioned it bizarrely, even in our household here, is cerulean as a gentle breeze is one of the most quoted X-Files lines that we say.
And it's great, but I don't understand why Linda knows it, because it would be in a police report of that one incident where that car hit a truck. It's not a general thing, because it's not like he says it all the time. It's the most iconic thing because it's part of the sting of the episode, but it's not something he does to other people. It was a one-off thing.
It's still cute.
It's so cute. I just want to know why Linda knows about it.
I think of all the things that Linda has psychically absorbed in this story, is that's the small one.
It probably is.
I've used this phrase, I think, twice today already, but that's the small potato.
That's very fair. I think it demonstrates, I mean, you can point to other examples in other places, like all those film scripts that were rewritten to be Hellraiser films when they weren't conceived as Hellraiser films. And, that worked for some of them, and then you get to Deader, and you couldn't even try with this one, apparently. This is barely Hellraiser.
I think it's a fun game for any horror fan is to watch the Hellraiser series in order of release and spot when the movies cease to be Hellraiser films.
Yeah. And this isn't us clowning around. This is genuinely, these were unassociated horror scripts that they were briefly edited to include Pinhead and or Lament stuff.
And sometimes it literally is a minute of Pinhead in the film. And
the nadir of this, I mean, really Hellwood should be the nadir, but I think Deader is actually the nadir, because Hellworld made more of an effort with this. But it goes to show that while people in production before you do it think you can reappropriate a script like this and it will work, it kind of doesn't. I mean, I'm sure there are some workable examples
Final
around.
Destination.
Yeah. Although I suppose Final Destination the difference is Final Destination started off as an X-Files script and you expanded it outwards.
Yeah, I guess
You're not scrubbing off the serial numbers and trying to put a new code of paint on it. And there's enough of the X-Files left in Final Destination to make it clear, like our two FBI agents, one of them who believes and one of them is very skeptical.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that some years ago, this case of, oh my god, they just are Mulder and Scully. There they are. They're not in as much, but they're in here. Or their lingering aspects of them are. It's not a good idea to try and do this, especially not with a fan favourite character. Because we mentioned Max and Tempest Fugia before, and bringing back a fan favourite character. And we made a big thing in that episode as well of, you brought back a fan favourite character, and apparently forgotten how you left them. And a lot of their character background, because, as I said at the time, Max did not know who's an abductee. He did not believe in an abductee. He was a UFO enthusiast. Now he's an abductee. And also, the last time we saw him, he went missing in a warehouse, possibly taken by aliens. And you have not dealt with this at all. This one is slightly better in the fact that we have dealt with how Pusher has come back to life, but we've still kind of just said, we'll just fudge the details of why he's back into this. And then not actually do a story half as interesting as Pusher, because that was the entire story. You can't do anything more with it.
It's a shame. At least the episode doesn't do anything that retcons Pusher, especially. Pusher still remains a great episode and it's not detracted from by this.
That's true. I mean, I think the fraternal twin is damaging, but given he doesn't know about it, that's fine. If you sort of said, oh yeah, he knew about Linda the entire time, you go, oh my god, you've just wrecked everything.
Yeah. So the worst thing a follow-up episode can do is wreck the original. At least it hasn't done that.
That's true. So we've got that. And it's interesting, again, that we've got Tombs as an episode that embodied and expanded the original idea perfectly and didn't wreck anything. And they were fine because they had Tombs alive and well at the end of the episode. And then they killed him off. And no more Tomb episodes.
Yeah, the two of them work perfectly well together as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this one does not. Oh, do we have anything more about this one?
I think I'm going to leave it. I would say that next week's episodes are better, however I can remember what next week's episodes are.
Oh, you mean Scissorgeny, the episode that no one likes?
There's got to be. Every episode has a fan. Someone's got to like Can't even say it.
Scissorgeny?
Scissorgeny?
Yeah.
Scissorgeny. I've got to admit, my first teenage view through, I don't mind minding Scissorgeny.
I can't remember it. I've got a blank void. I get this mixed up with the Raven one, which is like next season.
It might even be the season after that, but yeah, I know the one you mean.
The other episode, and there's one I quite like.
Nope.
It's Chinga.
Nope. It's terrifying. It's horrible. And I'm going to have to sit through it this week.
That you are.
Oh, God, no. It scares me so bad.
In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
Alternatively, you can find us on social media. On Twitter and Tumblr, we are GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universedon.com. Or on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Also, if you're not sick of my voice already, I also have a stream on Twitch TV. My username there is adversecamber42. You can find me on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT or Saturdays at 5 PM GMT. I stream whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5, which is currently One Piece Odyssey.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where you can find our first bonus episode where we try, and the operative word is try, to review Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, but more will be coming shortly.
Yay!
This will include, eventually, the video games, the books, the comics, the sequel comics, because we're going to differentiate between classic comics and the Season 10 comics, which have nothing to do with Season 10. Thanks, Chris. Trading card games, board games, and any other ephemera we can get hold of. This might include the X-Files theme song single, or maybe the album it's on, because there'll be slightly more to talk about, but that's incidental music from the series.
Please note that there are 3 tiers to our Patreon, all at different prices. You get different perks depending on what level you back us at, but at any level you will have access to all the special episodes.
Our theme song is Envision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on Compotech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
he had to go.